A moving image coming from San Juan, Puerto Rico today. Take a look. You're looking at a live picture of more than 1,600 pairs of shoes, each representing someone who died as a result of Hurricane Maria. This, as we're learning new information from the Puerto Rico Department of Health, data now being released by the agency showing that there were at least 1,400 additional deaths in the months after Hurricane Maria. Until now, that number had stood at 64 deaths. This updated figure comes just days after Harvard published its own report estimating at least 4,600 people had died as a result of the storm. Joining me now from Puerto Rico is CNN correspondent Layla Santiago. And Layla, you have had a chance to talk to some of these families. What are they telling you?
You know, I think what we're seeing right now at the Capitol building of San Juan really tells the story, Pamela. Take a look behind me. These are actually shoes, more than 1,600 shoes that have been placed at the Capitol building representing the lives, or rather, unfortunately, the deaths. Hurricane Maria related deaths placed here by loved ones. And as I just checked, the number is above 1,600. Remember, the death toll here from the government remains at 64. I'm going to bring in Claribel. She is the organizer of all this. And what does all this mean to you? Because I know you've talked to a lot of the families who have left shoes here.
This is the time that we can say goodbye to our loved ones, to people that we know or people that we don't know, but especially this is like the cemetery that we didn't have the time to do it. So now is the time to say goodbye to the relative. It's the time to the sorrow. It's the time to hug each other. So it's the time to really say a goodbye in honor and in dignity. So this is a place, a sacred place right now. People come here in silence. They come here with their shoes, a little letter, flowers. Maybe they come with pictures of the loved ones. And what they're saying is like they need to be hugged. They need to be with each other, and they need to be like be present here. Like they're not forgotten.
Right. Claribel, thank you so much. I got to second what she says. I've seen a lot of hugs, I've seen tears, and a lot of people just saying the deaths that occurred here during Maria and after are more than where the death toll stands right now. And not only does this bring sort of a lot of sadness and sorrow to those families, this time right now is also bringing a lot of anxiety, because yesterday was the very first day of the Atlantic hurricane season right here in Puerto Rico. And as I called around to the mayors of this island, most, actually all, said that this is an island that is very vulnerable. And 7 of the 8 said that they are not prepared to take on another hurricane, because this is an island that they say is still in recovery.
This looks like progress. It's actually a sign of desperation in Utuado, one of the areas hit hardest by Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico.
He says they're repairing the power themselves because they're almost at 9 months without power, and they feel abandoned.
Charlie Reyes has no experience doing this, climbing poles, working with live wires, restoring power, something he says he learned in one day from a retired power worker. Using any materials they can find, their risky mission has turned the lights back on for more than a dozen. The home of Samuel Vasquez is next.
It's like feel bad because it's just, you ain't get no power, you ain't get no light.
In Utuado, tarps are still being used, roads washed out, emergency plans are still being worked out. Mayor Ernesto Irizarry says his municipality cannot take another storm.
So how frustrating is that as the leader of 30,000 people in Utuado?
It's difficult and hard because you see in the eyes the people, the frustration.
He says he doesn't have the basic resources or the money to respond to a natural disaster. 8 months after Maria, parts of the island are still dealing with what FEMA calls the longest power outage in modern U.S. history. More than 10,000 customers are still in the dark.
Can this power grid, can it sustain itself if another hurricane were to come?
The most honest thing to say about our grid is that it's weak, or fragile.
Walt Higgins is the new CEO for Puerto Rico's Power Authority, tasked with fixing a power grid never built to handle Cat 4 or 5 hurricanes. Just weeks ago, an island-wide blackout was caused by a fallen tree. Higgins promises most of those still without power, though not all, will have it restored in a matter of weeks. What he cannot say is what will happen if another storm plunges the island into darkness.
My straight answer to that is we are readier this year than we were last year.
And people on the island will be counting on it for their very lives.
Will this be enough?
You know, yes.
For FEMA's part, it's showing off this warehouse full of disaster relief supplies. The plan for the next disaster compared to Maria preparations to have 7 times more water and meals, 6 times more generators, 8 times more tarps, all on the island before the next hurricane. The agency admits it's learned some lessons.
So will FEMA be ready for a faster response if a hurricane hits
Absolutely, there's
Puerto
no
Rico?
doubt, no doubt.
But for those in Utuado taking matters into their own hands, any sign of recovery is a victory.
You get a little emotional about it.
Oh, yeah. Whew, do you know how long did I don't see the light on my house? 9 months. Been 9 months.
And now another hurricane could be around the corner for the next season.
Yes. I guess I got to do it again by hand again with the people.
The hope here is that power returns before the next storm.
And Layla, when Press Secretary Sarah Sanders was asked about the disparity in death toll numbers, her response was that it was FEMA's largest response ever to a natural disaster in the wake of Hurricane Maria. Does that ring true to you, given what you saw on the ground after the hurricane, given how much time you spent there?
All right, well, listen, FEMA is committing $2.4 billion in assistance to Puerto Rico. But the biggest problem is that right now, even if they pump in more money, this is an island that is very vulnerable after Maria. So the response for anything that could come this way could need to be even more than what we saw in Maria, given the vulnerability of the power grid, given the vulnerability of the fact that there are still so many blue tarps on top of the roofs of the homes of this island. When you fly in, you just see blue on top of homes, and those are blue tarps, 30-day-old blue tarps that are still providing shelters to families. I don't want to give away or take away any credit. There has been a lot of progress. 99.2% of homes have had power restored, but that still leaves more than 10,000 people without power as we're going in to the next hurricane season. So FEMA did respond. Many have criticized it for not being fast enough, but you better believe for the next one, there will be even more of a need.